Have you ever jacked in? Have you ever wired tripped?
You ready?
The dark end of the street. How do you like it now?
You record it all.
The year is 1999. Los Angeles is burning. Society is on the edge of collapse as the millennium approaches. And in this dystopian nightmare, people escape through a new drug, one that doesn't alter your chemistry, but your reality itself. This is the world of Kathryn Bigelow's Strange Days, a film that plunges us headfirst into a terrifying yet mesmerizing vision of technological addiction. Released in October 1995, Strange Days emerged during a unique cultural moment. The cyberpunk aesthetic was infiltrating mainstream consciousness, Y2K paranoia was building, and Hollywood was experimenting with how to visualize our digital future. Bigelow, fresh off success with Point Break, teamed up with her ex-husband James Cameron, who co-wrote the screenplay with Jay Cox. Despite this powerhouse creative team and a substantial budget of $42 million, the film became one of the decade's most notorious box office failures, earning just $8 million domestically. What audiences and critics couldn't see in 1995 was that Strange Days wasn't just a film about the future. It was a prophetic vision of our relationship with technology, voyeurism, and justice that would only become more relevant with each passing year. Through its revolutionary POV sequences, unflinching look at police brutality, and exploration of our addiction to vicarious experiences, Strange Days wasn't just ahead of its time, it was warning us about the very world we would eventually create. Core analysis. What makes Strange Days truly extraordinary isn't just its prescient social commentary, but its groundbreaking technical achievements. The film's most striking innovation is the squid sequences, immersive first-person perspectives that let viewers experience someone else's memories, complete with sensations and emotions. These weren't just narrative devices, they represented a revolution in cinematography. To achieve these sequences, Bigelow and her team developed what they called the Snake Cam, a custom-designed lightweight 35mm camera rig that could be mounted on an operator's head. This allowed for genuine point-of-view shots that captured the immediacy and intimacy of first-person experience in ways that had never been seen before. The opening robbery sequence, filmed in a single unbroken take, remains a masterclass in sustained tension and technical prowess, all while maintaining the illusion that we're seeing through someone else's eyes. The sound design deserves special recognition as a crucial element of the squid experience. The team created layered audio landscapes that shift between objective reality and subjective perception, often incorporating binaural recording techniques to enhance the sense of immersion. These audio innovations were just as revolutionary as the visual components, creating a complete sensory package that pulled viewers into the experience. The wire blackout sounds, the neural static when connections fail, and the subtle differences between real sound and squid-recorded sound all contribute to the film's technological verisimilitude. Bigelow's decision to shoot on location in Los Angeles grounds the film's speculative elements in a tangible reality. Rather than creating an entirely fictional future city, Strange Days presents a recognizable but degraded version of LA, with familiar landmarks repurposed for a society in decline. This approach creates a more disturbing vision than complete fantasy. This isn't some distant future, but our world just a few years later. The production design team enhanced existing locations with subtle futuristic elements rather than overwhelming them, creating a lived-in dystopia that feels unsettlingly plausible. Visually, the film creates a striking contrast between the gritty, decaying streets of Los Angeles and the glossy, seductive technology of the SQUID devices. Cinematographer Matthew F. Leonetti crafts a world of neon-drenched darkness, where shadows conceal both danger and desire. The Millennium Party aesthetics, a vision of how 1995 imagined 1999 would look, created a distinctive visual language that influenced cyberpunk imagery for years to come. The production faced enormous challenges beyond just the technical innovations. Filming the riot sequences required meticulous planning to recreate the atmosphere of the 1992 Los Angeles riots while maintaining safety and control. Bigelow insisted on practical effects wherever possible, believing that the tangible reality of physical stunts would translate to a more visceral viewing experience. This commitment to realism extended to the film's violence, which remained shocking even by today's standards. Behind the scenes, the collaboration between Cameron and Bigelow represents one of Hollywood's most fascinating creative partnerships. Though divorced by the time of production, their complementary talents merged Cameron's technological vision with Bigelow's unflinching exploration of violence and power. Cameron's script provided the high-concept framework, while Bigelow's direction grounded the film's speculative elements in raw human emotion and physical intensity, a hallmark of her filmmaking that would later earn her an Oscar for The Hurt Locker. Cast and story. Impact Strange Days features a cast delivering performances that range from subtly nuanced to gloriously unhinged, with each actor bringing something vital to this complex dystopian world. At the center is Ralph Fiennes as Lenny Nero, a role that represented a dramatic departure from the dignified characters that had defined his early career. Fresh off his portrayal of the monstrous Eamon Guth in Schindler's List, Fiennes transformed completely into the sleazy, yet oddly sympathetic Santa Claus of the subconscious. His portrayal of Lenny as a sweaty, desperate ex-cop hustling illegal memories shows an actor willing to shed any trace of vanity, creating a protagonist who's neither hero nor villain but something messier and more human. Angela Bassett's performance as Mace stands as one of the most powerful female action roles of the 1990s. Her physical presence, commanding, precise, and lethal, is matched by emotional depths that transform what could have been a standard tough girl sidekick into the film's moral center. The scene where she finally breaks down after witnessing brutal police violence demonstrates Bassett's remarkable range. Behind the scenes, Bassett performed many of her own stunts, bringing authenticity to the film's action sequences. Her partnership with Fiennes creates an unusual and compelling dynamic rarely seen in science fiction, a platonic relationship defined by loyalty, exasperation, and unspoken love. What elevates their performances is the complexity of this relationship. While most sci-fi films of the era would have forced a romantic resolution, Strange Days allows their connection to exist in a more nuanced space. Mace's unrequited feelings for Lenny and his obsession with faith create tensions that drive the narrative forward without resorting to cliches. This emotional maturity reflects Bigelow's characteristic interest in how vulnerability and strength coexist within her characters, regardless of gender. The supporting cast delivers equally memorable performances that enrich the film's dystopian landscape. Michael Wincott as music producer Philo Gant brings a chilling, reptilian quality to his character, embodying the predatory nature of the entertainment industry. Tom Sizemore's Max Peltier initially appears to be comic relief, the reliable friend, before revealing darker dimensions. Vincent D'Onofrio and William Fichtner as corrupt police officers Steckler and Engelman represent institutional violence with frightening plausibility, avoiding cartoon villainy in favor of the banality of evil. Juliette Lewis completes the central triangle as Faith, Lenny's lost love and obsession. Lewis brings a feral, unpredictable energy to her role as a rock star climbing the ladder of success at any cost. Her performance sequences capture the raw intensity of the 90s alternative rock scene, with PJ Harvey providing her singing voice. Lewis makes Faith simultaneously vulnerable and dangerous, a woman who understands exactly how to use her image as currency in a world obsessed with manufactured experiences. The film's most memorable sequences remain startlingly effective decades later. The opening robbery and murder, experienced entirely through the eyes of the perpetrator, immediately establishes both the film's revolutionary visual approach and its moral ambiguity. The murder of Iris, recorded on squid and forming the central mystery of the plot, represents one of cinema's most disturbing death scenes precisely because we experience it from the victim's perspective. And the New Year's Eve climax, with the countdown to 2000 providing both narrative tension and symbolic weight, brings together all the film's thematic concerns in an explosion of violence, revelation, and unexpected tenderness. What elevates these scenes beyond mere spectacle is how they connect to the film's exploration of voyeurism, complicity, and justice. Each squid sequence forces us to question our own desire to watch, to experience, to consume others' lives, questions that have only become more relevant in our social media age. Reception and evolution. Strange Days arrived in theaters in October 1995 to a critical reception that can best be described as respectfully confused. Critics recognized its technical brilliance and ambition, but struggled with its violent content and dense narrative. Janet Maslin of the New York Times called it a dazzling display of virtuoso movie-making, while simultaneously noting its overload of violent imagery. Roger Ebert awarded it 4 stars, praising its visionary quality while acknowledging its commercial challenges. Those challenges proved insurmountable. Audiences largely stayed away, making it one of the biggest box office disappointments of the decade. The film's unflinching portrayal of racial tensions and police brutality sparked particular controversy. Its central plot involving the squid recording of 2 police officers murdering a prominent black musician echoed the Rodney King case that had triggered the LA riots just 3 years earlier. Some critics argued that the film exploited racial trauma for thriller elements, while others praised its willingness to address systemic violence when mainstream Hollywood largely avoided the subject. The graphic sexual violence, particularly in the Iris murder sequence, also divided viewers and critics, raising questions about whether the film condemned voyeurism or participated in it. What's fascinating about Strange Days is how its reputation has evolved over the decades. What was once seen as an overcrowded, excessive techno-thriller is now recognized as prescient in multiple ways. The film's treatment of virtual experience anticipated our complicated relationship with digital media. Its exploration of how technology can be used to document police brutality foreshadowed how smartphone footage would transform accountability in law enforcement. Even its millennial anxiety speaks to our cyclical fear of technological and social collapse. The film contains fascinating details that reward repeated viewing. Keen-eyed viewers might notice references to Bigelow's earlier work, particularly Point Break, in the film's visual language. The squid technology itself was designed with remarkable attention to neurological plausibility. The superconducting quantum interference device that gives the technology its name is a real concept in brain imaging. Perhaps most interestingly, many of the film's background extras during the Millennium Celebration scenes were members of actual apocalyptic cults who believed the world would end in 2000, lending an eerie authenticity to these sequences. The film's production designer created an entire alternative technology ecosystem, with squid players that feel both futuristic and appropriately dated, embodying how 1995 imagined 1999's technology would look. Legacy and modern relevance. Strange Days may have faltered at the box office, but its DNA is embedded in countless works that followed. The film's influence is perhaps most visible in The Matrix, released just 4 years later, which adopted both the jack-in technology concept and the distinctive aesthetic of cyberpunk dystopia that Bigelow had refined. The squid recordings, allowing characters to experience memories directly through technology, found echoes in films like Minority Report, with its pre-crime system, and more recently in episodes of Black Mirror, particularly The Entire History of You, which imagines memory recording as everyday technology rather than black market contraband. What makes Strange Days so relevant today isn't just its technological prophecies, but its social ones. In an era where police body cameras, bystander videos, and surveillance footage regularly capture instances of police brutality, the film's central premise, that recorded evidence of police violence might lead to justice, feels less like science fiction and more like documentary. Bigelow would return to these themes more directly in Detroit, 2017, but Strange Days deserves recognition as perhaps the first major Hollywood film to address police violence against Black Americans through a science fiction lens. The technical innovations pioneered by Bigelow and her team have influenced filmmaking far beyond the science fiction genre. The immersive POV techniques developed for the squid sequences have evolved into standard tools for modern action directors. Films like Hardcore Henry, 2015, expanded on these techniques to create an entire feature from the first-person perspective, while directors like Alfonso Cuarón have used similar approaches for key sequences in films like Children of Men and Gravity. The snake cam technology has evolved into the GoPro era, where immersive perspectives are no longer revolutionary but expected. Beyond its technical legacy, Strange Days stands as a crucial entry in the evolution of female-directed action cinema. At a time when women directors were rarely entrusted with big-budget genre films, Bigelow's unflinching approach to both violence and technology challenged gendered expectations about directorial sensibilities. Her refusal to soften either the film's brutal imagery or its complex moral questions opened doors for future filmmakers of all genders interested in exploring similar territory. The film's exploration of digital voyeurism and exploitation has only grown more pertinent in a world where we constantly consume others' experiences through screens. Lenny Nero's Squid Dealer motto, "I'm the Santa Claus of the subconscious," could easily be the slogan for social media platforms that promise authentic windows into others' lives. The film raises ethical questions about consent, privacy, and the commodification of experience that have become central to our digital existence. As we look back on strange days from our own strange present, what's most striking is how it captured a transitional moment in our relationship with technology. Set at the turn of the millennium, it envisioned a future where technology would infiltrate our most intimate experiences, where reality and simulation would blur, and where our desire to see and feel everything would create new forms of addiction. While we don't have squid devices, we carry phones that serve many of the same functions, providing constant windows into experiences not our own, creating both connection and alienation. What would Kathryn Bigelow's vision of the near future look like if made today, in an era of social media addiction, virtual reality, and ubiquitous surveillance? As our own strange days continue to unfold in ways both better and worse than this remarkable film predicted, perhaps it's time to revisit this overlooked masterpiece, not just as a curiosity from the past, but as a warning about a future that, in many ways, has already arrived. If you found this analysis thought-provoking, be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into prophetic films that saw our present coming long before we did.